Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and if you're new here on my channel, I usually talk about Japanese movies, dramas, entertainment. Sometimes I talk about other Asian pop culture topics as well, but I don't do professional reviews. I usually just sit down, talk about movies like I'm chatting with a friend, and that's what we're going to be doing in today's video as well. So for today, I'm going to be discussing this film called 18 times 2 Beyond Youthful Days. It recently just landed on Netflix, and interestingly enough, apparently it was based off of a real travelogue that was made by a Taiwanese game developer named Jimmy Lai. It chronicled like his story of traveling across Japan using the Seishun 18 ticket, and along it he was also reminiscing a youthful romance that he's had with a Japanese backpacker back in the day. The story went viral around 2014, and that's a reason why it ended up, you know, being a movie. But I think he also novelized the blog after the movie was decided. There were other like things about it that I saw when I was like researching this very roughly, but that's basically that. Now this stars Kiyohara Kaya, who I absolutely adore, and also Taiwanese actor Greg Hsu. And what's interesting about this film is it's a cross-cultural narrative, because again it takes place in Taiwan and in Japan, and both the main stars are also really from two different countries. And the director, Michihito Fujii, I love his directorial work in some of the past works that I've seen him do. I love his work in the parades. I love the directional style and all these things. So I kind of know like what I was in for watching this, but at the same time, like if you're just a casual viewer looking for something to watch on Netflix, or you're looking, like you've seen my past reviews and you're looking for similar stuff like Drawing Closer, all these other stuff that is romance, youthful, a bit wistful, all these other things, then please keep on watching and let's talk about this movie. Okay, so the story starts off with the POV of Jimmy, played by Greg Hsu. He's 36 years old. He had a successful business, but things weren't exactly going in the right path. Like he had success, but some things went wrong. He went back to his hometown. He was revisiting some of his memories, like when he was younger, was looking through his stuff, and then he remembered, you know, some of the things that he loved, which are anime, and also just memories of this girl that he fell in love with back when he was 18. Now that he's 36, he decided to go travel to visit this girl's hometown, because she used to talk to him a lot about it and all these other things, but he never really got into visiting that place in Japan. And now in his current state in life, he decided that it's about time for him to finally discover and learn more about her hometown. So embarks on his journey, goes through Japan, and while he's in this journey, he meets several strangers who he also kind of like shares parts of like reminisces parts of that past, and we kind of like get a glimpse of that romance, his first love, when he meets the Japanese backpacker named Ami, played by Kiyohara Kaya, who I absolutely adore. So basically, like that's how the narrative is. You know, 18-year-old Jimmy falls in love with Ami, but he was too shy to tell her. And she was this artist. She's very fun. She has a lot of things that, you know, that she wants to try. She's backpacking in Taiwan, but she lost some of her stuff, and that's why she ended up working in the karaoke place that Jimmy was also working in. And it's kind of like this push and pull kind of thing of Ami kind of like giving him hints that she likes him, but he was too shy or just too naive to act upon, you know, what he was feeling as well. And there was even this one point where he was talking to her and she says that she has a boyfriend, but there are a lot of kind of like hints about the entire narrative or how it would go. Even in just the first couple of minutes of the film. And like eventually, like again, I wouldn't spoil the film for you, just giving you a glimpse of the narrative, but it goes back and forth between, you know, Jimmy as a 36 years old traveling through Japan, meeting some strangers, also, you know, this casual kind of like once in a lifetime friends narrative where you meet people, you connect with them for that particular moment, and then you have to separate your ways because they're also traveling somewhere else. And he was just making his way to Ami's hometown in Fukushima. They haven't seen each other in the 18 years that went from them meeting each other back when they were 18 to now that he was an adult. And we just learn that, you know, like all these things about Ami asking him to take her on a bike ride, them going on a lantern parade, all these other things. And what I like about this film is the contrast between like the present, mostly taken or mostly located in Japan, and in the past, the present is a lot more cool toned in terms of just the cinematic vibe of it, and the past is very warm toned, which again kind of like symbolizes the spark of youth, that kind of like energy, that kind of wistfulness and hopefulness that comes with being in love as someone who's that young, and all these other things. And then in present, with Jimmy kind of like lost in a sense because of so many different things that is happening in his life, and he's embarking into this journey of you know, fulfilling this memory, or looking back at these memories that he's made 18 years back when he was younger, back when he had a lot more vigor for life and all these other things. And I think that nice contrast of colors really affect the way that we look at the story as well, and what it represents for the main character Jimmy, and what that means for his storytelling. Another thing that I like about it, it's not too complicated. Again, I think for this narrative, it's like if you've seen enough Asian films, it comes off as a little formulaic, like, you know, two young souls meeting each other for the first time, having very limited time together because someone has to go, or like all these different circumstances. So they kind of like have a shared, cherished moment in between them, and that kind of like leads or trickles down to more things about their lives, and they go their separate paths, but there's still something special there, just a bit of yearning that happens. And that's pretty much the same with this one, to the point that it tends, like, some of it tends to be predictable, but I am not saying that that's a bad thing, because again, in a world where there's a lot of films that tends to make romance, especially youthful romance, or like searching yourself type of narratives, to be too convoluted, too complex, or even philosophical, even stories that are straightforward, that are heartwarming, that is very upfront with what it's trying to say, is very, very refreshing in a sense. And even if it's repetitive, that we see it in other films, like my most present example would probably be Drawing Closer. Like, even if there's a certain kind of like flow to it that you can already perceive as a viewer, it's still a beautiful journey that you watch. Like, it's still a beautiful journey that you would not be disappointed to watch unravel on film. Like, I personally have predicted parts of the film in the first couple of minutes of it, but I still ended up watching it up until the end, because I want to see like what these scenes mean to these characters, and like how are they going to deliver these moments and memories, and just the idea of wistfulness and growing up and just discovering things even at that point in your life that is so blind to you when you were younger. And I think that's like just the film itself. Like, there's really not a lot to discuss about the narrative, other than the fact that it was a man going into this journey of going to the hometown of a girl he once loved, and reminiscing about that particular past. of his life, of when he fell in love with her at that one point in his life, and meeting some strangers along the way that add to, you know, the essence of this story and how we're taking it. And it's a literal depiction of how life's a journey. And it's dressed in beautiful acting. I think that both Greg Hsu and also Kiyohara Kaya delivered so beautifully in this film. Again, with Michihito Fujii, it wasn't a surprise that cinematography was good. Like, again, the use of colors and lighting, which I've seen in his previous works as well, is very much present in the storytelling of part of the storytelling of this film. And like, again, overall, it has a lot of, and it also, I think the reason why I ended up loving this as well is, again, I love Asian films in general, but I love it when the focus, like, it really shows how language and culture, as long as we're willing to kind of like cross that divide of not really understanding people or having differences and all these things, or wanting to cross over that to understand someone, to get to know someone, it creates such a beautiful connection. And at the end of the day, it just shows that we're all just human. And I think this film depicted that very, very beautifully. Although, again, there were parts of it, like with Kaya's character Ami, she's learned a little bit of the language when she was in Taiwan, simply because, you know, she has to communicate because she's working there. Same with Jimmy, Greg's character, because he's into anime, and at the same time he meets this girl that he actually really, really likes, and so he starts learning the language, like the Japanese language. But beyond that, there are still moments where they use their language to convey their own feelings to this other person, or just reacting to the situation. And it doesn't it doesn't hinder anyone, whether the characters or even the viewer, to see where they're coming from despite these differences, you know. And again, it also shows that feelings are very universal, emotions are universal, and there's just something about these films that, again, despite their predictability, being formulaic, all these other things, is so beautiful, at least from my perspective. And in my opinion, like, if you're looking for a film that you just want to sit down, just be, well, I wouldn't say that there's anything slow about the storytelling as well, because some films that have a very hopeful, wistful type of narrative, sometimes I understand that they tend to get boring. But for me, like, the first couple of minutes of it, especially like if you dive into it without really knowing what it's about, it might feel that way, because again, the color palette for the modern time, which where the story is starting off of, it's very dreary. It's not like, it's cool toned, almost gray to a point, but it's part of the storytelling of the film. And once it jumps to the flashback part of it, where like Jimmy starts, you know, like with the reminiscing part of how he met Ami, all these other things. And also, once we dive into the actual journey, like the story of the journey of Jimmy across Japan, reaching Fukushima, it's then like the pace keeps going in an okay phase. And I think overall, if you love wistful films in general, if you're looking for a romance story that wouldn't exactly make you leap in joy because of how it turns out, if you want to tear up a little bit but you love those types of films anyways, I suggest that you check it out. I think that you're also gonna love it. I personally loved it, and I'm fresh off of, you know, but again, that's like, I love films like these anyway. But if you want to, like, to be perfectly upfront, is this a sad film or a happy film? That's completely up to you. Like, I wouldn't want to spoil it, but there's certain things about this film that is definitely sad in a sense. So if you get easily sad, then probably you would find this sad. But I think, like, overall, the film also talks a lot about moving that you probably have forgotten because of how life was, and things that you've done or said back when you were younger that you've forgotten because of adulting, and then you eventually revisit it, and just having not really closure with anyone else but closure with yourself. And I think it's that kind of film. It's not really a self-discovery type of film as well, but yeah, I think the best way to describe it is having that sense of like closure with the promise that you've had with your young self. And if you love those types of films with a touch of romance in there, a touch of travel, it has a lot of beautiful scenes featured not just in Japan but also in Taiwan. I think that this is really worth the watch. And yeah, so have you seen this film? Do you plan to see this film? Do you have any other films that you feel like are within the same genre that you would want to recommend or want to see, or all these other things? Tell me down in the comments below as usual. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one. Bye!